Well, I'm excited about today's show. We're talking about your biggest investment, and it kind of made me step back into, I don't know, TV land, if you will.
Okay.
Remembering some of these old shows, remembering like the house for the Golden Girls, what about the house for Full House, and what about, most of all, the Brady Bunch?
Yes.
Where it actually became like part of your family, if you will. It was part of the show.
Yeah, it's the DNA of the show, right? The Brady Bunch, you think of those open staircase, that big, great open staircase they had.
Yes, and they're lining up.
Yeah, fun fact, the picture of the house on the front wasn't the house at all on the inside. So a few years ago on HGTV, the Property Brothers and some others they bought that house, the front, and they went about making it like the show on the inside, which they had to totally move walls and do all this to try to make it look like that on the inside.
I love that. And here's another fun fact, because the year that I won Mrs. America, Florence Henderson, who played Mrs. Brady, asked me my final question on stage.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so now I'm thinking back to that, because now that we're talking about the house and the Brady Bunch, the memories just come back, and she was just lovely. And her daughter, Barbara, was with her as well. Just beautiful.
And the Golden Girls was my mother's favorite show. I think Mom saw every single episode of Golden Girls multiple times.
Oh.
Yeah, so she loved it. I can't say I really ever sat down and watched an entire episode of the Golden Girls, but
she tried to get you to.
She tried to get me to. Oh,
but you know what someone told me recently? Like everyone that was on the Golden Girls at that time, they were like in their 50s. Did you know that?
No.
I didn't know that, but I think with makeup, it made them look older. But I read that recently, and I thought, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Gosh, Betty White looked the same for decades.
Oh, I know. Talk about a classic, timeless beauty. Everyone loved Betty White.
And our son, Jaden, he's gotten on this kick lately where he's watching all the reruns of Murder, She Wrote.
Oh, my gosh, Angela Lansbury.
Yes, and that's an iconic house there in Cabot Cove.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
That's really cool. I love that. Well, we talk about this today because obviously people sometimes feel that their home is their biggest asset. But Greg, you say that's not it. That's not their biggest asset, not necessarily when it comes to retirement.
It really isn't. And to be honest, I think our biggest asset is our health.
Very true.
You know, I mean, if you don't have health, I think about Steve Jobs, who was a billionaire. And, you know, at the end, he said, you know, what I lost most was my health, and that was everything to me.
That's true.
So then our family, you know, is so precious. But, you know, the other, you know,
from a
tangible asset would be our retirement savings.
But I think it's interesting to make that tie-in together, because we really do think about our home as being our biggest asset and throughout life, but understanding that the amount of steps and time you take to purchase a home versus the amount of time and steps you take in order to care for your nest egg, right?
It's true.
You really have to really put that in perspective when you think of it that way. It puts it in perspective, doesn't it?
It truly does.
It does. And think about all the care that we take on our house. I mean, in the spring, Kristin and I are diligent. We go to Strader's there off 665 in Grove City.
Al's there.
Yeah,
he knows
Al.
us. Yeah.
And Al is the greatest over there. If you go see him, he's such a great guy. But puts all these beautiful arrangements together, and we deck out the outside, all of our pots that we have sitting everywhere outside with the flowers, and, you know, adding that color into the landscaping. And then we have the people come to spray so we don't have weeds and dandelions everywhere. And they spray our trees, and they do all this, and we take all this time to manicure our properties, to make sure they look beautiful, make sure they look presentable. And, you know, when things need painted, you paint it, and when things need fixing, you fix it. But with our biggest assets, our IRAs, our 401ks, our 403bs, our TSPs, all these accounts, we sort of set it and forget it. I think, you know, how many people right now have their money in a target date fund, a 2025 fund, a 2030 fund? Do you even know what you're invested in? Think about it. Most of us, the biggest assets we really have, we have no idea how much risk we're taking.
It's true.
Can you imagine that?
No.
I mean, you've got $500,000, you've got $1 million or $2 million or however much you've saved, and you have no idea whether or not it's efficient. You have no idea whether or not you're taking too much risk. And so to me, the way you manicure, the way you make sure there's not a bunch of weeds in your portfolio is to have a portfolio X-ray.
Do you think that's kind of like, you know, when we're talking about homes and all that, I just thought about the home inspections. Mm-hmm. How many people forgo the home inspection? They don't even have it done.
Not many. Like during the heart of when the pandemic, if you will, and people were, then the interest rates dropped, and people were making multiple offers. They were waiving home inspections. They were waiving appraisals. But now we're in more of a normal environment where home inspections are pretty much standard.
So why were people waiving it? It was to save on time, right?
And to not inconvenience the seller in any way. Because what happens is you have the home inspection, then items are revealed that could be an issue down the road. And what do? You ask the seller to fix that. So to take all the burden off the seller, the buyer thought, you know what, I'm not even going to ask for it. I want my offer to be accepted. I'm going to forego the inspection. I'm going to forego the appraisal. Well,
and so when you're looking at an X-ray of your retirement account, I mean, you don't want to forego that, right?
It's true.
Because what happens if they didn't do the inspection, and then 6 months later they find out the roof is leaky, right?
Yep.
And now they have to dump all this money into the roof.
So what are some of the bad things you've seen come out in inspections?
Probably the worst would be anything to do with structure. If there's any joists underneath the house that need to be secured or they're cracked, they need to be replaced, that can be an issue. You know, sometimes you don't know what's behind those walls until you have an inspector that actually can have a special scope and take a look inside just to make sure that there's no mold, no moisture, no termites. So an inspection is really, really important, much like the portfolio X-ray.
So what could be a termite to a portfolio?
Oh, I know, fees.
Yes, fees could be. Yeah, what else could be? It is when the portfolio itself is not operating efficiently. And that doesn't mean that any one piece of the portfolio is necessarily a bad investment. It may mean the way it works together, the way it's put together, isn't necessarily operating as efficient as it possibly could be. So what we're trying to do with a portfolio X-ray is help identify that for people so they can, number one, know how much risk they're taking, know where they stand, know if they're efficient or not, and at the bottom line, figure out, okay, if things are not right, how do I fix it?
Absolutely. Makes perfect sense. Greg, thank you so much. Kristin, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, if you're in the viewing audience today and you're asking yourself, do I understand how much risk I'm taking in my current portfolio? And if you're unsure, take advantage of the Portfolio X-ray. Call in today. It's completely complimentary. 614-336-7660. 614-336-7660. When you think about it, we're talking about your biggest investment on today's show, and much like your home being insured, shouldn't you have a retirement plan that's going to ensure your retirement future? Without having a plan, there's really no insurance. There's only stress involved. So take advantage of the Portfolio X-ray today with Greg and Kristin. The number is 614-336-7660. We'll be right back after this very short commercial break.
Have you been wondering if a Roth conversion is a good idea? Do you feel a lack of confidence in Washington when it comes to future taxes during your retirement years? You should probably visit testmyretirement.com. It's Legacy Retirement Group's latest no-cost resource for soon-to-be and current retirees. TestMyRetirement.com is super simple to navigate. After clicking on Learn More, you'll fill in a few pieces of information, and within 30 seconds, you'll see a personalized analysis of your total potential taxes in retirement using your existing approach, compared to what's possible with some adjustments. Every situation is different, but if you don't want to be in debt to Uncle Sam, go to testmyretirement.com to find out if you can possibly reduce your future retirement obligations. Get started now at testmyretirement.com.
Welcome back to Winning Retirement TV. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, joined today by Greg and Kristin Taylor of Legacy Retirement Group. And we're talking all about your biggest investment. When you think about it, obviously, if people are out and about, Dorothy always said there's no place like home, right? So
Yes.
people can easily go online and they can find a home, but sometimes it's actually better to use a real estate agent if you have specific questions. So is it the same when it comes to retirement planning? Because a lot of people think that they can be a DIYer, kind of do it yourself, but they need the help of a professional. Are you seeing that overall to be true?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like with buying a home, there's steps and there's things that maybe you don't think about. Like, you know, it might be hard to understand what school district you're buying in, right? Because a real estate agent might know the ins and outs of the pros and cons to the school district versus private schools in the area, maybe, or you may know of some future development in the area. Well, I think for retirement, it's similar in that there's steps. There's steps to go meet with an advisor. There's steps after you meet with an advisor, and there's steps throughout retirement to make sure that your plan aligns with what you need for your goals as they move and change like life does, right?
Absolutely.
But there's some core areas that I think need to be in place and attended to when you're just getting to the retirement point. And one of those is income. Income is like the foundation of your retirement. And a lot of times when we discuss income, or maybe you hear different advisors talk about income, sometimes they're talking about using an annuity for income. Sometimes they're talking about your pensions. Sometimes they're talking about Social Security, all the different aspects of financial tools that are used to get income in retirement. And that's okay, but as we discuss the income and the income needs and find out what tool makes the most sense with what you're trying to accomplish, that's laying the foundation of the plan. And sometimes people need a lot of income to make up for what they need outside of their pensions or their Social Security. And then sometimes there's very little income need left there that needs to be attended to as you move on to the next step of your retirement plan, and that would be the growth aspect of it.
Okay.
And you know, Kristin, when it comes to income, that's why it becomes really difficult for a DIYer.
Yeah.
And here's why. Think about it. We only know what we have experience with. And as we've been growing our retirement resources, and it's not really that hard to grow our resources as a DIYer. People could buy index funds, for instance. They could buy a target date fund. They could do very simple mutual funds. They can put money away consistently, and because they're getting to average out their cost, dollar cost averaging into the market, their money over time is going to grow. It will. I mean, there'll be peaks and valleys just like there is in the market, but over the long haul, that money grows. But here's the part that makes it really difficult for a DIYer.
Okay.
And that is understanding the difference between accumulating wealth and distributing wealth, distributing income. Because just like we talked about so many times on this show, the market, the S&P 500 in the last 25 years has averaged over 13% per year. However, had we been pulling out 4%, we would be down by over 34%. That doesn't make sense when it comes to math, and it's hard to comprehend that when you're doing it yourself. It's hard to know the best strategy for income. And it depends on who you listen to. If you listen to one person, they're going to tell you annuities are the only way. You listen to certain people, and they'll tell you they hate annuities and you should too.
It's true.
So, I mean, that's a confusing message.
Yes.
And everybody that puts out that type of message where it's so demonstrative, in other words, that they're so definite that you should never do this thing, I find that to be a little harmful for people trying to figure it out themselves. Because how do I know? How do I know which path is right? How do I know what is the right? It's just like when you have a health thing and you go on Google and you search it, and all of a sudden you're trying to figure out, okay, is this something very simple, or am I about to die? You know, because the symptoms I have could be either.
Yeah.
Well, at that point, maybe you need to go see a doctor.
Yes.
Maybe it's time to have someone do some internal research and see, where do you really stand?
Yes.
What help do you really need? And that's where it comes down to income is everything in retirement. Income is your paychecks. Income is your lifestyle. Income is all the fun you want to have. Income is everything. So having that and knowing that you don't know what you don't know is really, really important when it comes to this.
Most definitely. And what I'm thinking of as I'm listening to you talk is mountain climbing, if you will. So you're starting at the bottom of the mountain, and at the top of the mountain is retirement. But how do you get to the top? You need a guide. So really working with a retirement specialist is like being a Sherpa on the mountain.
It is. And most mountain climbing accidents happen on the way down.
That's true.
Right.
And as people are trying to take this income out, that's when they can make huge mistakes. But the next part of it is, what's the most efficient way to grow it? The part that I need for growth, how do I do that efficiently? Because I'm no longer dollar cost averaging in. How do I have more of a consistent outcome? What about taxes? Taxes becomes a big issue.
Absolutely.
So as we're going through this checklist, my income plan, my growth plan, my tax plan, my health care plan, and whatever I leave behind to those I care about, my estate plan, my legacy plan, all these things, with the right plan, you really would just want to make sure that nothing slips through the cracks, that you're not leaving anything out, that you have a holistic plan.
And I love what Cynthia said there. It's like mountain climbing, out in Arizona. We both love Arizona.
Yes.
And, a couple years ago, we got a guide to take us to the Grand Canyon.
I remember that.
Yes. And so kind of like this in that he was not upholding himself as this like grand expert of the Grand Canyon, but he knew enough to get us there in an interesting way. He made stops along the way, told us interesting stories about the people of the land and of the area and the history behind it. And he personally knew some people from the Indian Nation. And what I think is so similar to us is that we don't have some special retirement designation. That is the area we've chosen to focus on. That's the area that he spent over 30 years focusing on, and I've been almost 20 years focusing on. And so we know a few things because we've seen a few things. Just like this gentleman who guided us to the Grand Canyon. I mean, he stopped and showed us ancient toilet paper, which was a plant. I can't remember the name of it. It's escaping me now. But so many interesting things that I think if we would have gotten a different guide to go to the Grand Canyon, yes, we would have gotten there, but we wouldn't have learned as much along the way.
Yes.
He kept the boys captivated, 4 hours there, 4 hours back. They weren't on their phones. They weren't on their games. They were listening every moment to this guy. And it was so much information. When we got to the canyon, oh my goodness, it was so enjoyable. He made it so much fun to be there. And, ultimately, that's our goal for retirees. As we help people get to retirement, when they get there, we want it to be a blast. We want them to have fun. We don't want them worried about the market's going down. We want them worried, am I going to outlive my income? We don't want to worry, what happens if taxes go up? What happens if I have a health care problem? We want to have all that solved ahead of time.
Yes.
So they can just have fun.
Yes, because it's all about winning your retirement, right?
It is.
Kristin, thank you so much. Greg, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, there's a number for you to call on your screen, 614-336-7660. You're being offered a complimentary planning review. All you have to do is call in today to 614-336-7660. You've worked your entire life to get to the retirement years. Don't you deserve to have peace of mind? Without a plan, that would be almost impossible. You need to enjoy everything that you've worked for. Your entire life comes down to this period of time, your retirement years. And the number one fear that most people have to this day is running out of money. So take advantage of the complimentary planning review by calling into 614-336-7660. Or if you're rushing out the door, you can grab your smartphone, click on the QR code at the bottom corner of your screen. That'll take you right to the landing page of Legacy Retirement Group, and you can claim your spot accordingly. Remember, it's a complimentary planning review, and you've worked your entire life to get here. We'll be right back momentarily.
Have you visited LegacyRetirementGroup.com lately? Not only can you easily schedule an appointment by clicking on Schedule Now, you can visit the Tools section and request a free copy of Legacy's My Retirement Kit. Simply fill in your email address and a few other details. Then check your email and you'll find a 10-page retirement kit in your inbox that can help you become better organized. Legacy's My Retirement Kit is designed to help you take a personal inventory and assign realistic values to your assets for what lies ahead. It's a key first step towards creating a true financial plan for your future. And you can do it for free at home right now. To be clear, this does not take the place of a retirement plan or estate plan, but it will help you get organized for the future of your retirement. Visit LegacyRetirementGroup.com and click on Tools to request your My Retirement Kit today. That's LegacyRetirementGroup.com.
Welcome back to Winning Retirement TV. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, joined today by Greg and Kristin Taylor of Legacy Retirement Group. And obviously we're talking about retirement, and let's talk about your biggest asset. Most people talk about their home as being their biggest asset in retirement. And think about that. You have insurance on your home, you have insurance on your car. Well, when it comes to retirement, what should people be insuring?
Well, healthcare is kind of expensive.
Okay.
So how about our health? Now, this is where it gets tricky. So many people want to retire before they're 65. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And the one thing that can hold them back is this thing called health insurance. If they're not getting compensated from their company, or if they're not being provided a good opportunity from the company they're retiring from, that can be a difficult equation, because that can be, in many cases, like a house payment.
Okay, absolutely.
So health insurance prior to age 65 can be a challenge, but once you turn 65, you now become famous.
Yes.
Yes, because you're going to get marketing from everybody. You're going to get...
I like how you put that.
Yes.
Yes. Everyone wants to talk to you.
Yes, so with Medicare, you have different parts. You have Part A, which is hospitalization, Part B, which is medical. The Part A, we are not charged any additional premium. We've kind of been paying into that all of our working life. Part B, we're charged based on our income. I believe it's $184, $185 per month for Part B this year.
Okay.
Right in that range. But if your income's over $206,000 as a couple, then it goes up. And then there's different tiers. And when you get really high income, you are in tears because you're paying a whole lot more. But it can go up significantly. It can go up to almost $600 per month per spouse if the income's high enough.
Okay.
So that's called IRMAA. So IRMAA, and that's extra
okay.
cost on the, I call it Aunt Irma. So if you
Okay.
hear from Aunt Irma, that means you're paying more on your Medicare Part B premiums and Part D, which is your which is your prescription drug benefit.
Prescription drugs,
Yeah.
okay.
So B is medical, A is hospitalization, D is the prescription drugs.
Okay.
There's also a Part C, which is also called Medicare Advantage. And that's the Medicare HMO. So it's kind of interesting. If you choose Part C, then you can change plans every year in the fall and during open enrollment period. I believe that's from October 6th to December 6th.
Okay.
And you can change plans, but those plans typically don't have a premium because they are compensated by the government, okay? Or you can choose instead to have traditional Medicare and a Medicare supplement. We actually have someone that I've worked with since 1994, and all he does is the Medicare stuff. So we don't do that in office, but we have someone that we refer people to that I have total confidence in, and they do both the Advantage plans and the supplements so people can choose what they think is best for them when it gets to that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another insurance would be life insurance.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I mean, it seems so simple, but it can be a Swiss Army knife, if you will. It can cover so many different areas. So from the simplest benefit of leaving a tax-free inheritance, but that tax-free inheritance could pay for taxes that may be down the line that you don't want your loved ones to have to think about or worry about.
Yes.
It could be used for final expenses. It could be, so it's not just to pay for, a young couple is married and you're trying to replace income. It could be for other things as well.
Yes,
Okay.
and a lot of people who choose to take a single life pension to get more income will buy life insurance so that if they
Yes.
pass away first, then their spouse has the life insurance money to replace the income they're going to lose.
Okay.
So that's another way life insurance is used.
Okay.
Long-term care.
Yes.
This is a hard one for people to decide, do I want to insure that? Because long-term care has the insurance part has a couple of real challenges. First of all, there's no long-term care insurance company I know of that's really that profitable. Because of how they've kind of been underwritten over the years, and there's so much claims against the insurance. So, like any other health insurance, the premiums can go up.
Okay.
And I've seen them go up with some companies doubled within a year. So that becomes a challenge. Am I concerned about it? Many people are concerned about it, but do they want to spend the money to buy the insurance? Not everybody's really willing to do that, but there are options. We work with a great certified elder law attorney. You have to be careful with elder law attorneys.
Okay.
Some shops operate to where everybody that comes in needs a trust. And they're, I don't have a ton of respect for that, but we have what I think is one of the best certified elder law attorneys that we work with that isn't, he's only going to help those that really need the help. And, so that's really important when it comes to this, is to make sure you've got an attorney that's not a salesperson.
Okay.
Okay? That's really important. And be sure if you're interviewing, be sure to interview various attorneys to get multiple viewpoints when it comes to this. Okay? But that's a big thing. Umbrella insurance to cover, especially if you have a swimming pool in your backyard. It's important to have umbrella insurance because, things can happen and you want to make sure you have proper coverage just in case.
Absolutely.
And then annuities can insure people's income. They can protect your income for your lifetime. And do you want to take, kind of that thing where do you want to know or do you want to hope that you have enough income?
Greg, thank you so much. Kristin, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, thank you for spending time with us today on Winning Retirement TV. If you're interested in what your retirement looks like overall, please visit yourlegacyquiz.com, yourlegacyquiz.com. Put in a little information about yourself and you'll be surprised at what comes out. Thank you for spending time with us today on Winning Retirement TV with Greg and Kristin Taylor. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We'll see you next week.